Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books on this holiest of days, the Gaur Purnima, the appearance day of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course, a lot of other persons come with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He comes with a full army, a spiritual army of eternal associates to deliver to us what no one else could do except for him. So we're going to be honoring his appearance today by reading from the Caitanya-caritamrta. But before we do, we're going to read Sanatana Goswami's glorification of the Bhagavatam like we always do. Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to deliver two things. Well, the holy name, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which he preached from regularly. So, Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandodita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Mannishtadaga Madbhagya Madananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin atini chuchata kada anamunchagadachin mam premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, in honor of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this most holy day, we're going to read from the Sri Caitanya-caritamrta. You know, Krishna, the original form of Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan, the form that contains all of the expansions and incarnations and everything else. That's Swayam Bhagavan. He only comes to this universe once in the day of Brahma. That's once every 8,640,000,000 years. Yeah. But he says, Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya chaduskritam, dharma sangstapanartaya, sambhavami yuge yuge. The word yuge means he comes in every yuga as the yuga dharma, as the yuga avatar. So in every Kali Yuga, there's a yuga dharma, and it's an expansion of Krishna. But only in the Kali Yuga of this particular day of Lord Brahma does he come in the form of Lord Chaitanya as the Yuga avatar. That means the form of Vishnu, a form of Vishnu, comes every Kali Yuga to deliver the Sankirtan. But only after Krishna appears, once in a day of Brahma, does Lord Chaitanya come. Does Krishna come again in the form of Lord Chaitanya. And he describes this, why he does this. In the 4th chapter of the Adi Lila. We're going to read today from the 9th chapter of the Adi Lila of Caitanya-caritamrta, but I want to read a little something from the 4th chapter first to give you a little background, if you don't mind.
Please.
There's no, I don't see any kind of like resistance. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda,
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda,
Jai Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda,
Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda,
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda,
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda,
Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
This is from the beginning of the 4th chapter, and then I'll switch over to the 9th chapter after we get a little background here. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu, even a foolish child can fully describe the real nature of Lord Krishna, the enjoyer of the pastimes of Braja, according to the vision of the revealed scriptures. Purport. One can ascertain the meaning of this Sanskrit shloka only when one is endowed with the causeless mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Sri Krishna, being the absolute personality of Godhead, cannot be exposed to the mundane instruments of vision. He reserves the right not to be exposed by the intellectual feats of non-devotees. Notwithstanding this truth, even a small child can easily understand Lord Sri Krishna and his transcendental pastimes in the land of Vrindavan by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have described the meaning of the 4th verse. Now, O devotees, kindly hear the explanation of the 5th verse. Just to explain the original verse, I shall first suggest its meaning. I have given the essential meaning of the 4th verse. This incarnation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, descends to propagate the chanting of a holy name and spread love of God. Although this is true, this is but the external reason for the Lord's incarnation. Please hear one other reason, the confidential reason for the Lord's appearance. Purport. In the 3rd chapter, 4th verse, it has been clearly said that Lord Chaitanya appeared in order to distribute love of Krishna and the chanting of his transcendental holy name, Hare Krishna. That was the secondary purpose of Lord Chaitanya's appearance. The scriptures proclaim that Lord Krishna previously descended to take away the burden of the earth. To take away this burden, however, is not the work of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The maintainer, Lord Vishnu, is the one who protects the universe. But the time to lift the burden of the world mixed with the time for Lord Krishna's incarnation. Now get this straight. Lord Krishna's incarnation only happens in one Kali Yuga in the whole day of Brahma. So the time for that appearance mixed with the need for the correction of the misbehavior of human society. Purport. We have information from the Bhagavad Gita that the Lord appears at particular intervals just to adjust a time-worn spiritual culture. Lord Sri Krishna appeared at the end of the Dwapara Yuga to regenerate the spiritual culture of human society, and also to manifest his transcendental pastimes. Vishnu is the authorized Lord who maintains the created cosmos, and he is also the principal deity who makes adjustments when there is improper administration in the cosmic creation. But Sri Krishna, being the primeval Lord, appears not in order to make administrative adjustments, but only to exhibit his transcendental pastimes, and thus attract fallen souls back home, back to Godhead. So both those things happen at the same time when Krishna appears. However, the time for the administrative rectification and the time for Lord Krishna's appearance coincided at the end of the last Dwapara Yuga, 28th Dwapara Yuga in Dev Brahma. However, therefore, when Sri Krishna appeared, Vishnu, the Lord of Maintenance, merged with him, because all the plenary portions of parts of the absolute personality of Godhead merge with him during his appearance. When the complete Supreme Personality of Godhead descends, all other incarnations of the Lord meet together with him. Lord Narayana, the four primary expansions, Vasudeva, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, Matsya, and the other Lila incarnations, the Yuga avatars, the Manvavatar incarnations, and as many other incarnations as there are, all descend in the body of Lord Krishna. In this way, the complete Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna himself, appears. At that time, therefore, Lord Vishnu, present in the body of Lord Krishna, and the Lord kills the demons through him. Thus, the killing of the demons is but secondary work. I shall now speak of the main reason for the Lord's incarnation. This is the Lord Chaitanya now. The Lord's desire to appear was born from two reasons. The Lord wanted to taste the sweet essence of the mellows of love of God. And he wanted to propagate devotional service in the world on the platform of spontaneous attraction. Thus he is known as supremely jubilant and the most merciful of all. Lord Krishna thought, All the universe is filled with the conception of my majesty. But love weakened by that sense of majesty does not satisfy me. If one regards me as the Supreme Lord and himself as a subordinate, I do not become subservient to his love, nor can it control me. In whatever transcendental mellow my devotee worships me, I reciprocate with him. That is my natural behavior. If one cherishes pure loving devotion to me, thinking of me as his son, his friend, or his beloved, regarding himself as great, and considering me as equal or inferior, I become subordinate to him. So Krishna came and he displayed these relationships: servitude, friendship, parental love, and conjugal love. But he didn't distribute it freely to everyone. But he showed, he displayed. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol, Carter, Hari Bol, Adi. Lord Chaitanya Krishna displayed his Braja Lila pastimes. But hardly anyone actually understood him. Hardly anyone except a few who were coming from the material world into the spiritual world by qualification, joined him in his Leela. And other people got liberated who came in contact with him, but they didn't get pure love of Krishna. And neither did they understand that he was the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. But some did, and he declared it openly to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That's the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna, when he turns to the spiritual world, he thinks, it's been a long time since I've actually delivered pure love of myself freely. And he also had some other even more confidential desires. So, taking these pure devotees with him, the ones who had the eternal associates in servitude, in friendship, in conjugal love, in parental and conjugal love, those are the four rasas in Braj. Taking these pure devotees with me, I shall descend and sport in various wonderful ways, unknown even in Vaikuntha. I shall broadcast such pastimes by which even I am amazed. So we sometimes become amazed when we hear about Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. We shouldn't be surprised, because even Krishna is amazed. Purport. Lord Krishna, in the form of Lord Chaitanya, educates his devotees to develop progressively to the stage of pure devotional service. Thus he appears periodically as a devotee to take part in various wonderful activities depicted in his sublime philosophy and teachings. There are innumerable Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, and in all of them the Lord accepts the service rendered by his eternal devotees in a reverential mood. Therefore Lord Sri Krishna presents his most confidential pastimes as he enjoys them in his transcendental realm. Such pastimes are so attractive, they attract even the Lord, and thus he relishes them in the form of Lord Chaitanya. So that's one level. He's distributing the Sankirtan, the method for opening love of God, and he's showing the pastimes of Vrindavan and the relationships in Vrindavan. And it's so special because he agrees to act as if he's within the modes of nature. He's not within the modes of nature, but he's acting as if he's within time and space. So therefore, when he comes, he appears to take a birth, he grows. Of course, he only grows to the point where he's 16 years old, and he doesn't grow after that. He stays for 125 years, but he still stays 16 years old the whole time after he grows to 16. So he shows the unlimited spiritual potencies of the spiritual world. But still, he goes from one place to another. It appears externally. The devotees in Mathura have to wait for him to come out of Vrindavan. Then he transfers everybody over to Dwarka. And Mithila and all the other places that he travels to in India, they have to wait for him to come there. But in the spiritual world, he's with everybody all the time, continuously. He eternally lives in Vrindavan, he eternally lives in Mathura, and he eternally lives in Dwarka. So in that way, he appears to, when he's in the spiritual world, he appears to live in time and space. There appears to be past, present, and future in his pastimes. But underneath those pastimes, there are eternal pastimes going on at the same time. Therefore, he never leaves Vrindavan, even in his Bhumi Lila, his Vrindavan pastimes on earth, in Gokula. When he comes to, when Akrura comes to take him out of Vrindavan, they stop at the river Yamuna to take a bath, and they tell Akrura to go take a bath. You remember? You've heard this in the Krishna book. You've heard this. So Akrura goes to the Yamuna, and while he's there, he sees Vishnu. He sees Krishna and Balaram, and he says, "Wait a second, they were just up." So he gets out of the water and he goes back up to the chariot, and they're there. And then Krishna says to him, "Did you see something wonderful in the water?" And then he goes back into the water, and then he sees Vishnu, and Balaram becomes Vishnu. Balaram becomes Shesha, Naga, and Krishna becomes Vishnu. And it's that point at which the expansion of Krishna proceeds externally to Mathura. But internally, he stays in Vrindavan. And he still has his pastimes with all his devotees. But they think it's just a dream. They think it's just some kind of vision. And therefore they have the feeling of separation, even though they're still with Krishna. So now, another thing happened simultaneously for his desire to come and distribute love. There's another desire that he had. He looked into a very polished pillar, and he saw his own form in the mirror-like pillar, and he became attracted to it. So attracted to it, he wanted to know more. He wanted to know what it was about him that was making him feel like he did. He wanted to know what love for him felt like, but he couldn't get it because he's eternally Krishna. And then he thought, the only way I can do this is that I can take the position of Srimati Radharani. And then that's when he decided to come down in the form of Lord Chaitanya. So all these things are going on at the same time. Krishna is fulfilling all these desires, and he's giving spontaneous love of Godhead. And then when he comes in as Lord Chaitanya, he distributes it freely. He shows it in the form of Krishna, but when he comes in form of Lord Chaitanya, he distributes it freely. So now we're going to switch over. That's just there's so much more to it than that. Sorry, I only can give you a little. Anyway, we'll go over to this is what I want to read. 9th chapter. The title of this chapter is The Desire Tree of Devotional Service. So now we're going to hear about what's actually going on here. Adi Lila, Caitanya-caritamrta Adi-lila, chapter 9. The desire tree of devotional service. Let me offer my respectful obeisances under the spiritual master of the entire world, Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even a dog can swim across the great ocean. Purport. Sometimes it is to be seen that a dog can swim in the water for a few yards and then come back to the shore. You've seen that? Here, however, it is stated that if a dog is blessed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he can swim across an ocean. Similarly, the author of Sri Caitanya-caritamrta, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, placing himself in a helpless condition, states that although he has no personal power, by the desire of Lord Chaitanya, expressed through the Vaishnavas and the Madana Mohan Vigraha, it is possible for him to cross a transcendental ocean to present Sri Caitanya-caritamrta. All glory to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is known as Gaur Hari. All glories to Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, headed by Srivas Thakur. In order to fulfill all my desires, I remember their lotus feet. I also remember the 6 Goswamis, Rupa, Sanatan, Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva, Gopal Bhatta, and Dasa Raghunath. This is the process for writing transcendental literature. A sentimentalist who has no Vaishnava qualifications cannot produce transcendental writings. There are many fools who consider Krishna Lila to be a subject of art and to write or paint pictures about the pastimes of Lord Krishna with the gopis, sometimes depicting them in a manner practically obscene. These fools take pleasure. Excuse me, I gotta turn off my sound. Thank you. These fools take pleasure in material sense gratification. But one who wants to make advancement in spiritual life must scrupulously avoid their literature. Unless one is a servant of Krishna and the Vaishnavas, as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami presents himself to be in offering respects to Lord Chaitanya, his associates, and his disciples, one should not attempt to write transcendental literature. It is by the mercy of all these Vaishnavas and Gurus that I attempt to write about the pastimes and qualities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whether I know it or not, it is for self-purification that I write this book. This is the sum and substance of transcendental writing. One must be an authorized Vaishnava, humble and pure. One should write transcendental literature to purify oneself, not for credit. By writing about the pastimes of the Lord, one associates with the Lord directly. One should not ambitiously think, I shall become a great author. I shall be celebrated as a writer. These are material desires. One should attempt to write for self-purification. It may be published or it may not be published, but that does not matter. If one is actually sincere in writing, all his ambitions will be fulfilled. Whether one is known as a great author is incidental. One should not attempt to write transcendental literature for material name and fame. Text 6. I take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who himself is the tree of transcendental love of Krishna, its gardener, and also the bestower and enjoyer of its fruits. Lord Chaitanya thought, my name is Vishwambar, one who maintains the entire universe. Its meaning will be actualized if I can fill the whole universe with love of Godhead. Thinking in this way, he accepted the duty of a planter and began to grow a garden in Navadvip. Thus the Lord brought the desired tree of devotional service to the earth and became its gardener. He sowed the seed and sprinkled upon it the water of his will. Purport. In many places, devotional service has been compared to a creeper. One has to sow the seed of the devotional creeper, Bhakti Lata, within his heart. As he regularly hears and chants, the seed will fructify and gradually grow into a mature plant, and then produce the fruit of devotional service, namely love of Godhead, which the gardener, Malakara, can then enjoy without impediments. All glories to Sri Madhavendra Puri, the storehouse of all devotional service unto Krishna. He is a desire tree of devotional service, and it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. We heard about Madhavendra Puri just the other day. The seed of devotional service next fructified in the form of Sri Ishwara Puri. And then the gardener himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, became the main trunk of the tree of devotional service. There's a lot of details in this Prabhupada about the family and the places and all these. I want to skip. Don't mind. By his inconceivable powers, the Lord became the gardener, the trunk, and the branches simultaneously. Paramananda Puri, Kesava Bharati, Brahmananda Puri, and Brahmananda Bharati, Sri Vishnu Puri, Kesava Puri, Krishnananda Puri, Sri Nishingatirtha, and Sukhananda Puri. These 9 sannyasi roots all sprouted from the trunk of the tree. Thus the tree stood steadfastly on the strength of these 9 roots. With the sobering grave Paramananda Puri as the central root, and the other 8 roots in the 8 directions, the tree of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood firmly. From the trunk grew many branches, and above them innumerable others. Thus the branches of the Chaitanya tree formed a cluster or society with great branches covering all the universe. Purport. Our International Society for Krishna Consciousness is one of the branches of the Chaitanya tree. From each branch grew many hundreds of sub-branches. No one can count how many branches thus grew. I shall try to name the foremost of the innumerable branches. Please hear the description of the Chaitanya tree. At the top of the tree, the trunk branched into two. One trunk was named Sri Advaita Prabhu, and the other Sri Nityananda Prabhu. From these two trunks grew many branches and sub-branches that covered the entire world. These branches and sub-branches and their sub-branches became so numerous that no one can actually write about them. Thus the disciples and the grand disciples and their admirers spread throughout the entire world, and it is not possible to enumerate them all. As a big fig tree bears fruits all over its body, each part of the tree of devotional service bore fruit. Purport. This tree of devotional service is not of the material world. It grows in the spiritual world, where there is no distinction between one part of the body and another. It is something like a tree of sugar, for whichever part of such a tree one tastes, it is always sweet. The tree of bhakti has varieties of branches, leaves, and fruits, but they are all meant for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are 9 different processes of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma, Nivedanam. But all of them are meant only for the service of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, whether one hears, chants, remembers, or worships, one's activities will yield the same result. Which one of these processes will be most suitable for a particular devotee depends upon his taste. Since Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the original trunk, the taste of the fruits that grew on the branches and sub-branches surpassed the taste of nectar. The fruits ripened and became sweet and nectarian. The gardener, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributed them without asking any price. All the wealth in the 3 worlds cannot equal the value of one such nectarian fruit of devotional service. Not considering who asked for it and who did not, nor who was fit and who unfit to receive it, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed the fruit of devotional service. Purport. This is the sum and substance of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. There is no distinction made between those who are fit and those who are not fit to hear or to take part in the Sankirtan movement. It should therefore be preached without discrimination. The only purpose of the preachers of the Sankirtan movement must be to go on preaching without restriction. That is the way in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced this Sankirtan movement to the world. Text 30. The transcendental gardener, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributed handful after handful of fruit in all directions. And when the poor hungry people ate the fruit, the gardener smiled with great pleasure. You know, when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas and began traveling, because the first part of his life he was living in Navadvip, and he grew up there, and he got married there. He was a teacher, great teacher, and when he was 24, he stayed here for 48 years only. In 24, he accepted the sannyas order of life because he found certain segments of the society began to criticize him when he came back from Gaya after the passing away of his father, Jagannath Mishra. So there he met Ishwara Puri, it was already mentioned, and Ishwara Puri had already come and stayed in his house before, and that's when Lord Chaitanya met him. And that's when Lord Chaitanya gave Ishwara Puri the full mercy. And then when he met him again in Gaya, when he went to do the Shraddha ceremony for the passing away of his father, then Lord Chaitanya asked him for initiation into the holy name. This is his lila, this is his pastime. So as soon as he heard the holy name from Ishwara Puri, he immediately blossomed into full love of God, instantaneously. And when he came back, he was a different person. He had a school, and he was teaching logic and Sanskrit grammar, and he was a great scholar. Nobody could touch him when it came to argument about revealed scriptures. And he was actually even taunting the Vaishnavas. He hadn't come out yet as the Supreme Lord. Well, he never came out as the Supreme Lord, but he never came out as the Supreme Vaishnava. So they were afraid of him because they couldn't argue with him, and there was a whole community of Vaishnavas there, and they were kind of feeling suppressed because the whole area was Muslim, and on top of that, the Brahmins, the so-called spiritual leaders of the Vaishnavas, were all smarta Brahmanas. They were all ritualistic. They weren't in love with Krishna. But there was a small cadre that had been put there by Lord Chaitanya before, Advaita Acharya and others, Mukunda, Murari Gupta, so many. And they were chanting and trying to keep their devotional lives together, but they were always harassed by the Muslims and by the Brahmins, by the caste Brahmins. So Lord Chaitanya came to change that. So when he came back, he started to preach differently. He started to teach completely differently. And he would teach the grammar, but he would use names of Krishna in every single example. So all he would get was Krishna. And that confused the students because he was teaching them in a different way before. And then he was exhibiting the love of Krishna, and he would sometimes chant the names of the pure devotees of Braj, specifically the gopis. And they would criticize him. Why are you chanting the names of, you should chant Krishna's name. He's the supreme. And then Lord Chaitanya said, you foolish, he took a stick out, he started to run after them. And they were, these are a little older, like teenagers. He was 16, I think, when he went to, when he took sannyas, he was 16. Anyway, so, no, he was 24 when he took sannyas, but this was a little bit before. Anyway, he was a young man. And then they got together, the students. They said, he's our peer, he's saying, we're not going to let him get away with this. The next time he tries something, we're going to beat him. They were thinking like that. So then Lord Chaitanya understood their minds, and then he decided, unless they offer me respect, I'm not going to be able to deliver everyone like I want to. So that's when he decided to take sannyas. And when he did that, he traveled everywhere around India. And wherever he went, whoever saw him immediately fell down on the ground, ecstatic tears flowed out of their eyes, and they became full-on lovers of Krishna, just by looking at him, just by seeing him. This was what it's talking about here. The Transcendental Gardener, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributed handful after handful of fruit in all directions. And when the poor, hungry people ate the fruit, the gardener smiled with great pleasure. Lord Chaitanya thus addressed the multifarious varieties of branches and sub-branches of the tree of devotional service. Since the tree of devotional service is transcendental, every one of its parts can perform the action of all the others. Although a tree is supposed to be immovable, this tree nonetheless moves. Purport. It is our experience in the material world that trees stand in one place. But in the spiritual world, a tree can go from one place to another. Therefore, everything in the spiritual world is called alaukika, uncommon, and transcendental. Another feature of such a tree is that it can act universally. In the material world, the roots of a tree go deep within the earth to gather food. But in the spiritual world, the twigs, branches, and leaves of the upper portion of the tree can act like its roots. Text 33. All the parts of this tree are spiritually cognizant, and thus, as they grow, they spread all over the world. I am the only gardener. How many places can I go? How many fruits can I pick and distribute? Purport. Here Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu indicates that the distribution of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra should be performed by combined forces. Although he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he laments, how can I act alone? How can I alone pick the fruit and distribute it all over the world? This indicates that all classes of devotees should combine to distribute the Hare Krishna Mahamantra without consideration of the time, place, or situation. It would certainly be a very laborious task to pick the fruits and distribute them alone. And still, I suspect that some would receive them and others would not. Mind that. Remember when you're out in Sankirtan. Never feel discouraged. This is a very important verse. Please listen. Listen up. Ateva ami agya dilun sabakare yahan tahan premapala deha yare tare. Therefore I order every man within this universe to accept this Krishna consciousness movement and distribute it everywhere. There's your marching orders. Purport. In this connection, there's a song sung by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Ene che aushari maya nashi bara lagi harinama sankhya mahamantra lao tumi magi bhakti vinoda prabhu charane padiya say harinama mantra laila magiya. The Sankirtan movement has been introduced by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just to dispel the illusion of Maya, by which everyone in this material world thinks himself to be a product of matter and therefore to have many duties pertaining to the body. Actually, the living entity is not his material body. Where have we heard that before? He is spirit soul. He has a spiritual need to be eternally blissful and full of knowledge. But unfortunately, he identifies himself with the body. Sometimes as a human being, sometimes as an animal, sometimes a tree, sometimes an aquatic, sometimes a demigod, and so on. Thus, with each change of body, he develops a different type of consciousness with different types of activities, and thus becomes increasingly entangled in material existence, transmigrating perpetually from one body to another. Under the spell of Maya or illusion, he does not consider the past or future, but is simply satisfied with the short lifespan that he has gotten for the present. To eradicate this illusion, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought the Sankirtan movement, and he requests everyone to accept and distribute it. A person who is actually a follower of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur must immediately accept the request of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by offering respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet, and thus beg from him, beg from the Lord, this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. If one is fortunate enough to beg from the Lord this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, his life is successful. Text 37. I am the only gardener. If I do not distribute these fruits, what shall I do with them? How many fruits can I alone eat? Purport. Lord Chaitanya produced so many fruits of devotional service that they must be distributed all over the world. Otherwise, how could he alone relish and taste each and every fruit? The original reason that Lord Sri Krishna descended as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to understand Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna and to taste that love. The fruits of the tree of devotional service were innumerable, and therefore he wanted to distribute them unrestrictedly to everyone. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore writes, Anarpita chidim chidat karunaya vatirna kalo samarpaitum unato jvala rasam subhakti shriyam hari purita sundara jyuti kadamba sandi pita sada hridaya kandare sparatu va sachinandana. There were many previous incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but none were so generous, kind, and magnanimous as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For he distributed the most confidential aspect of devotional service, namely the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna. Therefore, Sri Rupa Goswami desires that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu live perpetually in the hearts of all devotees, for thus they can understand and relish the loving affairs of Srimati Radharani and Krishna. 38. By the transcendental desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, water has been sprinkled all over the tree, and thus there are innumerable fruits of love of Godhead. You wonder what's happening when you go out and have Harinam? So many people hear that holy name. That's the seed of devotional service being planted everywhere. Purport. God is unlimited, and his desires are also unlimited. This example of unlimited fruits is factually appropriate even within the material context. For with the good will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there can be enough fruits grain, and other foodstuffs produced, so that all the people in the world could not finish them, even if they ate 10 times their capacity. In this material world, there is actually no scarcity of anything but Krishna consciousness. If people become Krishna conscious by the transcendental will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there will be enough foodstuffs produced so that people will have no economic problems at all. One can very easily understand this fact. The production of fruits and flowers depends not upon our will, but upon the supreme will of the Personality of Godhead. If He is pleased, He can supply enough fruits, flowers, etc. But if people are atheistic and godless, then nature, by His will, restricts the supply of food. For example, in several provinces in India, especially Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, and other adjoining states, there is sometimes a great scarcity of foodstuffs due to lack of rainfall. So-called scientists and economists cannot do anything about this. Therefore, to solve all problems, one must seek the goodwill of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by becoming Krishna conscious and worshipping Him regularly in devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Lord Chaitanya is still speaking. Distribute this Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. Let people eat these fruits and ultimately become free from old age and death. So here the fruits, well, let me read the purport first. The Krishna consciousness movement introduced by Lord Chaitanya is extremely important because one who takes to it becomes eternal, being freed from birth, death, and old age. People do not recognize that the real distresses in life are the four principles of birth, death, old age, and disease. Rather, people are so foolish that they resign themselves to these four miseries, not knowing the transcendental remedy of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one can become free from all misery. But because people are enchanted by the illusory energy, they do not take this movement seriously. Therefore, those who are actually servants of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must seriously distribute this movement all over the world to render the greatest benefit to human society. Of course, animals and other lower species are not capable of understanding this movement, but even if a small number of human beings take it seriously, then by their chanting loudly, all living entities, including even trees, animals, and other lower species, will be benefited. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired from Haridas Thakur how he was to benefit living entities other than humans, Srila Haridas Thakur replied that the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is so potent that if it is chanted loudly, everyone will benefit, including the lower species of life. For all you conservationists in the crowd. Text 40. If the fruits are distributed all over the world, my reputation as a pious man will be known everywhere, and thus all people will glorify my name with great pleasure. Purport. This prediction of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's is now actually coming to pass. The Krishna consciousness movement is being distributed all over the world through the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And people who were leading confused, chaotic lives are now feeling transcendental happiness. They are finding peace in Sankirtan, and therefore they are acknowledging the supreme benefit of this movement. This is the blessing of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His prediction is now factually being fulfilled, and those who are sober and conscientious are appreciating the value of this great movement. So I'll stop here. That's an hour worth. There's an ocean to talk about Lord Chaitanya, but we'll stop there for today. Hare Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai. So what are those fruits? Anybody who's heard the Hare Krishna mantra, even once, it's just a matter of time. Those who are chanting all the time, or every day, and those who, when you see them, you feel like chanting. And the books. Prabhupada, wherever Prabhupada went, I was in the San Francisco airport, 4, when he came to Rath Yatra, 1974. I saw this with my own eyes. You know, there was a huge kirtan you can never do that nowadays, have a huge kirtan in the airport. Some countries you can't even get into the airport unless you got a ticket to go on a flight. Anyway, there was a big kirtan going on, but the airport was just, you know how American airport, just everybody's going by. And then the kirtan was reached a crescendo, you know, because Prabhupada's flight had arrived, right? And then when he came out of that, you know, the gate, and it was a, you know, huge room. That's the way the San Francisco airport is laid out. In some places it's not so much like that, but it's the whole place, I swear to you, I saw it with my own eyes. Everybody just stopped for just a few seconds, and they looked at Prabhupada, and he was glowing. He was glowing, and everybody just got his mercy. It was incredible. Of course, we went nuts. Kirtan went nuts. Flowers started flying everywhere. People were throwing, you know, sandalwood water on everybody. It was like we could never get away with anything like that now. But you know, he was distributing Krishna consciousness just by walking around, and we carry something from him. And then he printed all those books. And every one of those books is one of those fruits also. It's Prabhupada. You're carrying Prabhupada, and you give Prabhupada's association to anyone and everyone. That's what this means. Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago was talking like this, and now look what's happening. Krishna consciousness had not come out of India at all. Lord Chaitanya traveled around India, especially in the south, parts of the north and the west. But he didn't go out of India. And Prabhupada was the representative of Lord Chaitanya who came to the West and spread it everywhere. When Prabhupada left, there was 108 temples. Now there's almost 800. In just that short a time. That's only what, 50 years? No. 1977. This is not what I'm trying to say to you is this is not ordinary what's going on. And the Caitanya-caritamrta is actually telling us what's going on and exactly what to do. So please everyone, please dedicate yourselves to distributing this sound vibration of Prabhupada's books in the form of his books, in the form of reading them, in the form of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, in the form of spreading the festivals and the devotional activities that are being spread. In that way, anyone who comes in contact, the restaurants, the prasadam in the restaurants, prasadam in the festivals, prasadam every day for us. Look how lucky we are. We get to take prasadam every meal. There was a purport where Prabhupada said, if one takes to Krishna consciousness, there'll be nothing lacking. I'm here to tell you, for 46 years, 50 years, I haven't had a job. Earned income. And I can't think of one day when I was wondering where my next meal was coming from. And it'll work for the whole world. It's just starting. It'll take 5,000 years to spread to its peak of influence. So we're so lucky. Please make eternal gratitude the cornerstone of your devotional lives, of your spiritual lives. Everyone within earshot. It's not just for enjoying ourselves, it's for giving out. And as that happened, then the fruits gained taste and increased. It is the duty of every living being to perform well for activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence, and words. Anyway, I could go on and on. I could go on and on, but I'll stop here. Okay, any points that anyone wants to discuss? Or ask? Or anything? You got this fancy dancing new system. I can tell everybody's fasting. Is something online? No. Everybody's having festivals everywhere in the world now for Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna. Sarva.
He was late, so I feel like I went surfing late, so all the waves are like kissing waves.
Something?
Can you just say something about Lord Chaitanya's behavior? Because he changed people by his teaching, but also by his way he acted, even with the Mayavadis.
Yeah, this is a very important point. Oh, sorry. This is a very important point, what Sarva just said, because there's a group of devotees that are what we call pseudo-devotees. They're devotees, but they take everything very cheaply, and they think that Krishna, because it says that Lord Chaitanya came to give, the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, they take that literally, that that's what they should do. And they're not taking the Lord. See, Lord Chaitanya came to show how to be a perfect devotee. He's Krishna acting as a devotee to show us how to be a perfect devotee. But you have to look at his life. At the end of his life, he was just relishing the internal mellows of the Madhurya Rasa. But during his life, to get there, he had to distribute Krishna consciousness. And he did that by Sankirtan, and he did that by explaining the philosophy behind Krishna consciousness everywhere he went. And he defeated the biggest Mayavadi philosophers and the most powerful speculators in all of India. He practically changed the whole situation. When Lord Chaitanya came, Vrindavan, there was no temples in Vrindavan. There were no temples in Vrindavan, like it is now. And all the places had been covered, And this is what happens with time. And that's why Krishna has to come in some form or another to revitalize the time-worn material culture. And that's what we do to it, us conditioned souls. We just keep messing it up, and Krishna comes and fixes us all that up and gets it going again, and then with time, then we mess it up again, and then he has to come and clean up our mess, so to speak. So, yes, so that's really important, that Lord Chaitanya spread Krishna consciousness by chanting, by dancing, by explaining Krishna consciousness. This Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatari Shatarani, that Prabhupada wrote his own pranam mantra, second pranam mantra, and it's very, very deep, and it's very significant, because that's what Lord Chaitanya did to sweep, to clean, before he distributed it everywhere. He was distributing it everywhere anyway, but he did that. Even the hardcore, the most hard-hearted Mayavadi philosophers became delivered, not just by him looking or touching, but by the sound, the explanation that came out of his mouth. That's later on in Caitanya-caritamrta. It's all there. Anyway, Hare Krishna. Yes.
This is an online question from Rati.
Yes, Rati.
Could you please share with us one of your favorite pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, if you have one?
Favorite pastimes of Lord Chaitanya? Whoa. Well, it's like an ocean. When in Jagannath Puri, well, it's connected with a few things. When Lord Chaitanya, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami first met Lord Chaitanya when he was on his way to Vrindavan the first time. But he didn't go all the way to Vrindavan the first time. He turned back. And the reason he turned back was millions of people, literally millions of people, were following him. And when he came to the place where Rupa and Sanatana, well, actually Rupa and Sanatana left where they were and went to see him. But when they saw how many people were following Lord Chaitanya, Sanatana Goswami, he's like chief minister of this whole part of India, and he advised him. He said, I don't think this is the right way to go to Vrindavan with all these people. And Lord Chaitanya, he noted immediately Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, because they were eternal associates. They were Lord Chaitanya was in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari in the spiritual world. So here's, Lord Chaitanya, who knows Radharani, and there's Rupa and Sanatan, and Sanatan's advising him what to do, and he immediately did. He said, okay, and he went back to Jagannath Puri. And again he went, and this time he met one of the other one. I can't remember which one. Lord Chaitanya met Rupa on the way, and then went to Vrindavan, and then Sanatan on the way back, something like that. And he gave them his full mercy. So then later, they came to see him in Jagannath Puri, one at a time. It's one of my favorite pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. He came to see them, and on the way, when Rupa Goswami was going to Jagannath Puri to meet Lord Chaitanya, he had already started to write books, not ordinary books, like very deep spiritual books which explained the meaning and the symptoms and the loving exchanges of the different mellows of devotional service, especially the conjugal mellow between Radha and Krishna. So when he came to Vrindavan, he was on the way when he decided to write a book about Krishna Lila. Right? So he's traveling towards Puri, and he stays overnight at a place called Satyabhamapur. And he had a dream that night. He had decided to, he was going to write a book. So then, when he got to Satyabhamapur, he had a dream that night, and Satyabhama herself appeared to him in a dream and said, Lord Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. Don't take me out of Vrindavan. Don't take Krishna out of Vrindavan. Write one about me also. So then dream broke, and then he understood, now I'm going to have to write 2 dramas. One about Krishna in Vrindavan and the other about Krishna in Dwarka. So then he went on to Jagannath Puri, and there was a very emotional reunion, and Lord Chaitanya would come and meet Rupa Goswami and Haridas Thakur, who were staying together every day, and bring them prasadam, because Rupa Goswami had been serving the Muslim government, and therefore he didn't feel himself fit to go into the temple of Jagannath. And Haridas Thakur was born in a Muslim family, so he didn't feel fit to go into the temple, because that was a rule then anyway. And so one day, after Kirtan, Lord Chaitanya had this song that he kept singing in the Kirtan. And it wasn't directly about Radha and Krishna or Vrindavan. It was like we would say like a cinema song. It was like a regular song, popular song. And no one could understand what he was saying. Rupa Goswami heard it and he understood what he said. And then he wrote another verse saying exactly what he meant. And the basic gist of it was that, I am the same Radharani, you're the same Krishna, and now we're again together, and in Vrindavan, and isn't this nice? And so then he wrote that verse and he put it in the thatched roof of the thatched just a little hut they were staying in. He put it in the thatched roof. So then they went to do their whatever. And Lord Chaitanya just came right after that. And he saw this in the thatched roof. He picked it up. He started to read it. He said, oh my God, somebody understands my mind. This is not possible. Nobody understands my mind. So then he took it to Swarup Damodar, who was his constant companion and his secretary type. No one could approach Lord Chaitanya to read anything to him, because there were many poets and literary people who would write things about Krishna, and they would want to read it to Lord Chaitanya. But nobody could approach Lord Chaitanya with anything like that unless it first got the approval of Swarup Damodar. So Lord Chaitanya went to Swarup Damodar and he said, look at this, read this. And then Swarup Damodar, and he was the most elevated, most knowledgeable about the mellows of pure devotional service. So he said, Lord Chaitanya said, how could Rupa have known my mind? It's not possible. No one knows my mind. Of all the devotees, only Swarup Damodar knew what this meant. A couple of others, two or three. So then Lord Chaitanya got a little bashful, and he said, well, I did meet him in Prayag, and I noticed that he was completely qualified. So I gave him my full mercy. Swarup Damodar said, see, I was right. So then, then Lord Chaitanya took Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy and Sarva Bhattacharya and a couple others, his very intimate and most deeply knowledgeable, followers, disciples, to see Rupa Goswami where he was staying. And he said, what kind of book are you writing? Because when Rupa Goswami first came, Lord Chaitanya told him, he said, no, Krishna doesn't leave Vrindavan, so don't take him out of it. In other words, he said the same thing that Satyabhama had said to him before. So then Rupa Goswami knew, this is confirmed. I can't write, I have to write 2 dramas. It's a drama he was writing. And it ended up being Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava. Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan and Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka. So then Rupa Goswami started to read, different select verses, and then those who were really knowledgeable, Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy, they asked him pointed questions about different aspects of drama, of Sanskrit drama, and how he was opening it, what kind of verses he was answering all these questions. And that's when he first read that famous verse about I don't know how much nectar the 2 syllables Krishna have produced. Whenever I hear it, I want to have millions of ears, and when I speak it, I want to have millions of tongues in order to, fully relish. Otherwise, it's not possible. It's like an ocean. And Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar were just like, they went into ecstasy. And then, so when I was reading this, I was understanding that by that time, Lord Chaitanya was completely absorbed practically in the mood of Radharani. And here's Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy, who are also manjaris in the spiritual world. And then Rupa comes, and they were girlfriends of Radharani, Sakhis. But Rupa Manjari is Manjari. Manjaris are very young girls, 11, 12, innocent, completely innocent. So they can be around Radha and Krishna at all times. No. So here it's Rupa, who's like an 11, 12-year-old, explaining the most intimate, elevated truths about, pure devotional service to Lord Chaitanya and, Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And it was just so wonderful. How Lord Chaitanya, who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, acting like a devotee, but not just an ordinary devotee, acting like a sannyasi, who everybody was worshipping, who was the authority for everyone, but he was hearing from his followers the philosophy, giving them credit. And then he would glorify his devotees like anything. Like he had, hundreds of mouths. He would glorify Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Haridas Thakur, Swarup Damodar, Ramananda Roy. Wherever he got an opportunity, he would just glorify them. And whenever anybody asked him, would you please tell me about Krishna? He said, I don't know anything about Krishna. I heard about Krishna from Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar. You have to go to them, Pradyumna Mishra, and all these devotees, and intimate devotees. So even in that situation, as being the most respected, sannyasi, in here you just walk as a sannyasi, but there, sannyas means something. Everybody bows down as soon as they see you and all these things. So that was my favorite pastime. How Lord Chaitanya, how much love Lord Chaitanya has for his devotees, and how whenever they tried to glorify him as Krishna, he would just put his hands in his ears and run away. Don't call me on that. But he couldn't hide from them. Okay, Rati, that's it. That's all I can do for now. It's getting late. The program's going to happen pretty soon. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Gauranga. 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 Shri Gaur Purnima ki jai. Gaur Purnima Maha Mahotsava ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow at 6:30 Central Time, same place, same station. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.